Week 18 in the NFL gave us our playoff fields set, my friend.
Can't wait. There's going to be some really good matchups, and Mondays will be horrible.
The Monday night? Yeah, that is
Well, that's not a
Eagles Tampa on Monday.
Why is that the Monday night?
I don't know. Eagles are in trouble, man. You mentioned this. They were 10-1.
Yeah.
At one point this season, they were riding high, and they end up waddling their way into the playoffs as a wild card, man. And I said this on Friday. I wasn't out on the Philadelphia Eagles. I wasn't, because of the fact that they have pedigree, they had experience, and I wanted to see if they could turn it on, because I think what we forgot is that last year they had a lull like this right before the playoffs too, and they ended up in the damn Super Bowl. But this was a lot different.
Right. This was an entire team issue, not just like a player or two here or there.
Shane Steichen leaving, Jonathan Gannon leaving, that is big. And then that defense on yesterday, they were hunting matchups for Saquon Barkley, the New York Giants were. And they embarrassed the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it was 24-0 at halftime. Like, it was over early in that thing. Second quarter, they scored 21 points, the Giants do. And it was just like, is this Eagles team ever going to wake up? They are slow and undisciplined on defense. It just looks like schematically it's not clicking, whether it is the coordinator change from Gannon to this year to, was it Decide this year?
Well, it was Decide.
Now you have Matt Patricia, where you've had three different coordinators in a year's span that these guys are getting their defensive calls from. And now the scheme is not Matt Patricia's scheme that he called in New England or Detroit, but especially offensively in New England. But there's a disconnect defensively. You cannot overcome that with an aging defense like they have. They have veteran parts. There is something wholly missing there. And then offensively, rhythm of that offense just is not there. Lane Johnson is back. You still have Kelsey, but offensively, their play calling and Jalen Hurts, like, it's time that we start saying
a step back.
Jalen Hurts is hitting the struggle bus without Shane Steichen as his coordinator. And when they aren't running the ball effectively, that offense kind of melts down.
Well, and honestly, he can't run the ball effectively because he's been battling shoulder issues all year. Like, as good as the tush push is, it's clearly taken some wear and tear on Hurts. He's clearly banged up. It's a completely different feel from last year. And there's a lot of things last year that Philly fans, when you were winning, they were all excited about. When it comes to Sirianni, he talks trash. He's got these corny things that he says to the media. And, it's all fun and games and it's all exciting. Yep. But once you start losing, him going to the fans on a Monday night game in the middle of the NFL season talking trash to Kansas City fans,
that
doesn't look so cool. Yeah. It looks lame, and it looks like you're worried about the wrong things. And that's exactly what's going on right now in Philadelphia. They're worried about the wrong things. They have player meetings every other week, it seems like. A.J. Brown has to come out and defend Sirianni, being like, this isn't coach talk. Yes, it is. Your coaches asked you, and your other players, your fellow players, asked you to go and defend your coach. You've lost your last two games to the Giants, who are going to draft 6th, and to the Cardinals, who are going to draft 4th.
Well, I'll tell you what.
You're broken.
You mentioned A.J. Brown defending Nick Sirianni. A.J. Brown going down with that injury, and now they're awaiting MRI results.
Hurts his finger, too?
These things are just the perfect storm of, could I see them beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday night? Sure.
They're favored, technically.
Yeah. I could see that happening because the NFC South was doo-doo this year. But at the same time, this team is not a contender. It's not a team that you envision in the NFC Championship. It's a team that you envision getting routed if they do make it past Super Wildcard Weekend. And look, Baker Mayfield, he got a little touched up in Carolina at the end of that game to win the division. They're not going into this thing full strength. I am not in on the Philadelphia Eagles. They needed to, and that was a game where you say, hey, we can right the ship.
Right.
We can get back on the right track. We don't have to end the back part of this regular season 1-5 a la the Jacksonville Jaguars, which you want to talk about that collapse. 10-1 that one is the one everybody's talking about with Philly. How about 8-3 for the Jacksonville Jaguars? And they end up finishing the season 1-5 with their only win coming against the Carolina Panthers.
That's brutal, dude.
That is brutal, dude. They melted down in epic fashion. Both of those teams laid an absolute egg yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing with the Jaguars too, like it seemed like this was your year. You got Calvin Ridley back. Last year, you exceeded all expectations. You have your quarterback of the future. You have a Super Bowl winning head coach who's offensive minded, and you're scheming your team up to get guys open. Travis Etienne continues to improve, which is huge in that running back position because he improves as a pass catcher and as a rusher. And you can't get the job done. And then you're playing the Tennessee Titans, who they had to go back to Tannehill at quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's been horrible. It's Derrick Henry's swan song, and you give up 150 to old-ass Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry will be retired.
Don't say that to Tractorcito.
Tractorcito's season died 2 years ago. He's had too many carries. He's hit the running back cliff.
See, I'm a big Doug Peterson fan, but I got to tell you,
too.
the readers are not a good look on the sideline. I see him in the readers, and all I can think of is Bob the teacher who had the airplane door fall in his yard.
You can't have a football head coach that has to get readers out to call the play.
Look, I think both of these teams, their meltdowns at the end of the year. One, Jacksonville was a regression season after exceeding expectations last year. People kind of got over their skis. They beat a dysfunctional Chargers team in a playoff game they had no business winning last year. They came in, as you mentioned, Calvin Ridley comes back. You think that one more year of seasoning with Trevor Lawrence and the rest of the young parts can kind of push them over the top. Well, this is the NFL, right?
Right.
It is
certainly not.
It is a collision sport. Trevor Lawrence gets dinged up.
Well, the big one was Christian Kirk.
Jalen Hurts gets dinged up in both of those teams. You see them kind of spiral at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. The importance of the quarterback position has been exacerbated across the NFL this year because of how many backups that we've seen. But when you have so much riding on the arm of Lawrence and Hurts to perform and those guys get dinged up, you get 1-5 finishes and lackluster ends to the season. Mm-hmm. And look, there's bigger issues in Philly, I believe, if you're looking at this on how you come out the other side, because of the fact that you do have to rectify whether Sirianni is the guy to be the head coach and who are going to be your coordinators moving forward. Do you make that push and say, hey, do we go after the Ben Johnson, the wonderkind play caller out of Detroit? Where do you go offensively with your identity in Philly? They got bigger questions because guys like Jason Kelce, he's probably going to retire. Lane Johnson, I don't know how much longer. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, those guys. You've got a lot of answers that you need in short order in Philly. Jacksonville, you're still looking at, this was a regression year, but moving forward, the expectations, even if your coach has readers on the sideline, should be sky high.
Well, and the other thing for them is, how do you shore up the injury issues that you had at quarterback? You go get a better offensive line. This is a very loaded offensive line draft class. I mean, just from the Northwest, you have 3 All-Americans that are going to be in this draft class. The left tackle out at UW, Oregon State's tackle, and Powers Johnson from Oregon. So it's fixable, and it's fixable in a position where if you can get 1 or 2 guys, go grab a free agent, go grab a veteran, go grab a young kid, and all of a sudden it completely changes. That's what Kansas City did 2 years ago. And now they have one of the better offensive lines. Mm-hmm. Now they have their struggles in having to go get wide receivers, but you can build an offensive line, and you can do it relatively quickly. Cincinnati did the same thing too. But I think when you look at these collapses, and I'll even throw the Miami Dolphins in there as well, is you have injuries to key players, and then those guys trying to fight through it because either the next option wasn't good enough or they believe that they were still better injured than the next option. And the inability of their team to find a way to work around those weaknesses. Instead of looking at Jalen Hurts and going, we have injury issues with him. Let's find a way to get the ball to Smith. Let's find a way to get the ball to Swift. Let's find a way to get the ball to A.J. Brown in positions that Hurts can 1, 2, 3 step and throw. Or in the case of Jacksonville, who can replace Christian Kirk or who can replace the production in 2 or 3 spots? They went, well, we're just going to go with what we've always done, and it'll eventually succeed for us. And it doesn't.
Yep. And you can't run the ball. Make the passing game an extension of your run game, and they just couldn't do it this year.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they have plenty of pieces.
Yes, right. There's plenty of spots, and there's plenty of offensive minds. There should be plenty of offensive minds in that building that have coached in spread systems that have found ways to do that. I mean, just look at what Oregon does.
It's not rocket science, man.
Right? Everyone jumps on Bo Nix, check down Bo. What's he supposed to do? He has an open guy 2 yards with 4 yards of cushion, 2 yards downfield.
If you're doing it on 3rd and 8, it's a problem. When you're doing it on 2nd and 10, it's not.
Right. It's not that difficult. And if it is, you've got the wrong guys in the building.
All right.